Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Perfect Facade. Damon Schaefer stood in the marble-floored foyer of his sprawling mansion, adjusting his Italian silk tie as he prepared for another day of commanding his construction empire. At 42, he had built Schaefer Industries from nothing into a multi-million-dollar company that dominated the Northeast commercial construction market. His steel-gray eyes reflected the same cold efficiency that had crushed countless competitors and earned him both respect and fear in equal measure. "Daddy!" 9-year-old Lily Schaefer bounded down the curved staircase, her blonde curls bouncing with each step. She was the one pure light in Damon's world. His daughter, conceived during what he believed were happier times with his wife Terry. "Princess," Damon's voice softened as he caught her in his arms. "Ready for your appointment with Mrs. Montoya?" Terry Schaefer emerged from the kitchen, her auburn hair perfectly styled and her designer dress clinging to her still attractive figure. At 38, she maintained the same beauty that had initially captivated Damon 15 years ago when she was a struggling art student and he was a young contractor hungry for success. "I'll take her to the salon," Terry said, not meeting Damon's eyes. "I have some errands to run afterward." Damon nodded curtly. Their marriage had grown cold over the past 2 years, though he attributed it to the stress of his expanding business. What he didn't know was that Terry had been carrying on an affair with Reynaldo Bean, Damon's former business partner who had tried to steal clients and start a competing firm 3 years prior. The salon, Aurelia's Touch, was owned by Aurelia Montoya, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who had been cutting hair for the wealthy families of their suburban Connecticut town for over 2 decades. She had watched marriages crumble and secrets spill across her salon chair, but she had never witnessed anything quite like what she was about to discover. As Lily settled into the styling chair, chattering about her upcoming school play, Aurelia began her usual routine of washing and sectioning the child's hair. But as she lifted a section near the back of Lily's head, her fingers detected something unusual, a small, raised scar hidden beneath the blonde strands. "Lily, sweetheart, have you had any accidents lately? Any falls?" Aurelia asked carefully. "No, Mrs. Montoya." "What?" Aurelia's experienced, I recognized the precise, surgical nature of the scar. This wasn't from a childhood tumble or accident. This was from a medical procedure, one that had been deliberately concealed. "Wait a second." Aurelia's voice trailed off as she parted the hair more carefully. "Dad, this is—" She stopped mid-sentence, her face draining of color. The scar was small but unmistakable, the telltale mark of a subcutaneous tracking device implantation. Aurelia had seen similar scars before, but never on child. Her brother worked in private security, and she knew enough about surveillance technology to recognize the signs. "Dad, don't look," Lily whispered, sensing the tension in the room. But Damon had already moved closer, his trained eye immediately assessing the situation. Years of dealing with industrial espionage and corporate sabotage had taught him to recognize surveillance equipment. What he saw made his blood run cold. Without hesitation, he pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "This is Damon Schaefer. I need police and paramedics at Aurelia's Touch salon immediately. My daughter appears to have been implanted with a tracking device without my knowledge." As they waited for the authorities, Damon's mind raced. Only 3 people had regular access to Lily: himself, Terry, and their live-in nanny, Viola Wood. The procedure would have required medical knowledge and equipment. But more importantly, it would have required someone with a motive to track his daughter's movements. The first seeds of suspicion about his wife's true nature were beginning to sprout in Damon's calculating mind. Chapter 2. Unraveling Deceptions. Detective Gavin Cherry arrived at the salon within 20 minutes, his weathered face grim as he surveyed the scene. A veteran of the force with 15 years of experience in cybercrimes and family cases, he had seen his share of custody battles gone wrong. But this case immediately struck him as something more sinister. "Mr. Schaefer, I need to ask you some difficult questions," Detective Cherry said as paramedics carefully examined the device under Lily's skin. Are you and your wife going through any marital difficulties? Any custody disputes? Damon's jaw tightened. My wife and I have our differences, but nothing that would warrant this. He gestured toward his daughter, who was being comforted by Aurelia while medical professionals worked. The paramedic, a young woman named Carrie Ray, looked up from her examination. Sir, this device appears to be a GPS tracker, but it's medical grade. Whoever implanted this had surgical training and access to specialized equipment. The procedure would have required sedation for a child this young. When would this have been done? Damon asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Based on a healing pattern, I'd estimate 2 to 3 weeks ago, Carrie replied. Damon's mind immediately went to the weekend 3 weeks prior, when Terry had taken Lily on what she claimed was a girls' trip to visit her sister in Boston. They had returned a day later than planned, with Terry explaining that Lily had come down with a stomach bug and needed to rest before traveling. Detective Cherry pulled Damon aside. Mr. Schaefer, I need to be direct with you. In cases like this, we usually find that one parent is planning to disappear with the child. The tracking device suggests someone wanted to monitor your daughter's location continuously. You think my wife is planning to kidnap my daughter? I think someone is planning something, and they wanted to make sure they could find her no matter where she went, Cherry replied. I need you to think carefully about any changes in your wife's behavior recently. Any new friendships, unexplained absences, financial irregularities. As Damon considered the detective's words, his phone buzzed with a text from Terry, running late with errands. We'll be home by dinner. Kiss Lily for me. For the first time in months, Damon paid attention to the timestamp and location data on his wife's messages. She had been sending these vague errand texts frequently, always with convenient excuses for extended absences. Detective, I need to show you something, Damon said, pulling up his phone's message history. My wife has been exhibiting a pattern of unexplained absences. I dismissed it as shopping trips or social activities, but now, Cherry studied the messages. Mr. Schaefer, I'm going to need you to be very careful about how you proceed. If your wife is planning to disappear with your daughter, confronting her directly could accelerate her timeline. We need to investigate this properly. What do you need from me? First, we need to have this device safely removed from your daughter. Then, I need you to act normal at home while we conduct surveillance. Don't let your wife know what we've discovered. The next few hours passed in a blur of medical procedures and police interviews. The tracking device was successfully removed, revealing a sophisticated GPS unit with cellular connectivity. The serial number traced back to a medical supply company in Boston, the same city where Terry had claimed to take Lily 3 weeks ago. As evening approached, Damon returned home with Lily, his daughter having been sworn to secrecy about the day's events. The 9-year-old, frightened by the adult conversation she had overheard, readily agreed to keep quiet. Terry greeted them at the door, her smile bright, but her eyes unable to meet Damon's directly. How was the salon, sweetheart? She asked Lily. Fine, Mommy. Mrs. Montoya gave me a new haircut. It looks beautiful, Terry said, her fingers briefly touching the area where the device had been hidden. If she noticed anything different, she didn't show it. That night, as Terry slept beside him, Damon lay awake staring at the ceiling. The woman he had married, the mother of his child, had violated their daughter in the most fundamental way. The tracking device wasn't just about monitoring location. It was about power, control, and preparation for theft. For the first time in his marriage, Damon Schaefer began planning not a business strategy, but a war. Chapter 3. The Surveillance Web. The next morning brought a facade of normalcy that felt like poison in Damon's veins. He sat at the breakfast table, watching Terry butter toast for Lily while internally cataloging every micro-expression, every hesitation, every tell that he had been blind to for months. Detective Cherry had been clear, maintain the status quo while they built their case. But Damon Schaefer had not built an empire by waiting for others to act. He had his own resources, his own methods, and his own sense of justice. After dropping Lily at school, Damon made a call to Floyd Livingston, his head of security at Schaefer Industries. Floyd was a former military intelligence operative who had helped Damon navigate corporate espionage attempts and union troubles over the years. Floyd, I need you to set up comprehensive surveillance on my wife, Damon said without preamble. I want to know where she goes, who she sees, and what she does every minute of every day. Boss, that's a hell of a request. You sure about this? Someone implanted a tracking device in my daughter's head, Floyd. I'm sure about everything right now. Within hours, Floyd had assembled a team of 3 investigators and equipped them with the latest surveillance technology. They would maintain a discreet distance, documenting Terry's movements without alerting her to their presence. Meanwhile, Damon reached out to another old contact, Othis Sampson, a forensic accountant who specialized in uncovering hidden assets and financial fraud. If Terry was planning to disappear with Lily, she would need money, and that money would leave a trail. Otha, I need you to analyze every financial transaction my wife has made in the past 6 months, Damon instructed. Look for cash withdrawals, new accounts, unusual purchases, anything that suggests preparation for flight. How deep do you want me to go, Damon? All the way to the bottom. I want to know if she's been stockpiling resources. By noon, the first surveillance reports were coming in. Terry had driven to a coffee shop in the next town over, where she met with a man Floyd's team identified as Reynaldo Bean. The meeting lasted 45 minutes, during which both appeared agitated and argumentative. Reynaldo Bean. The name hit Damon like a physical blow. His former business partner, the man who had tried to steal clients and destroy Schaefer Industries 3 years ago. The man Damon had crushed so thoroughly that Bean had been forced to declare bankruptcy and leave the construction business entirely. Son of a bitch, Damon muttered, staring at the surveillance photos on his phone. Reynaldo looked older, worn down by financial stress, but his eyes held the same cunning that had made him a dangerous adversary years ago. The pieces were falling into place with horrible clarity. Terry and Reynaldo weren't just having an affair. They were conspirators. The tracking device in Lily's head was part of a larger plan, one that would allow them to monitor and control his daughter's location even after they disappeared. Otha's preliminary financial analysis arrived that afternoon, revealing a pattern of suspicious activities. Over the past 4 months, Terry had been making regular cash withdrawals of $500 to $1,000, always from different ATMs and always on days when she claimed to be running errands. The total amount approached $15,000, enough to fund a disappearance, but not enough to trigger automatic reporting requirements. More damning still, Otha had discovered that Terry had opened a new bank account in Boston under her maiden name, Terry Brock. The account had been funded with a $25,000 deposit 3 weeks ago, the same weekend she had taken Lily to visit her sister. They're planning to run, Damon told Floyd over the phone. The question is when. Based on what we're seeing, boss, I'd say soon. Bean looked desperate in those photos, and your wife is showing all the signs of someone preparing for a major life change. That evening, Damon watched his wife serve dinner with new eyes. Every smile felt calculated, every gentle touch with Lily felt like a manipulation. Terry was preparing to steal his daughter, and she was doing it with the help of his greatest enemy. But Damon Schaefer had not survived the cutthroat world of construction by being passive. He had built his empire by anticipating his enemies' moves and crushing them before they could strike. As Terry kissed Lily goodnight, Damon made a decision that would change everything. He would not wait for the police to build their case. He would not trust the courts to protect his daughter. He would take matters into his own hands. And when he was finished, neither Terry nor Reynaldo would ever threaten his family again. The war was about to begin. Chapter 4. The Trap Takes Shape. 3 days of surveillance had revealed the full scope of Terry and Reynaldo's plan. They met daily at different locations, a park, a library, a shopping mall, always maintaining the appearance of casual encounters while exchanging what appeared to be detailed information. Floyd's team had managed to plant listening devices in both Terry's car and Reynaldo's apartment, providing Damon with a chilling window into their conspiracy. The passport documents will be ready Friday. Reynaldo's voice crackled through the recording Floyd played for Damon. I've got contacts in Montreal who can help us disappear completely. What about the money? Terry's voice, usually soft and melodious, carried a hard edge Damon had never heard before. The insurance policy will pay out once they find a body. $2 million, tax-free. Enough to set us up for life. Damon's blood turned to ice. Insurance policy. Body. They weren't just planning to kidnap Lily. They were planning to kill him. Floyd, I need you to give me everything on their insurance plans, Damon said, his voice deadly calm. And I need you to find out who's helping them with the passport fraud. The investigation revealed a web of corruption that went deeper than Damon had imagined. Reynaldo had made contact with a document forger named Christopher Ponce, a man with connections to organized crime families in Boston. Ponce specialized in creating new identities for people who needed to disappear permanently. More shocking still, Otha's financial analysis revealed that Terry had taken out a $2 million life insurance policy on Damon 6 months ago, forging his signature on the documents. The policy included a double indemnity clause for accidental death, meaning she would receive $4 million if Damon died in what appeared to be an accident. They're going to kill me, take my daughter, and disappear with $4 million, Damon summarized to Floyd. And they're going to do it soon. Boss, we need to call the police. This is way beyond corporate espionage. No, Damon said firmly. The police move too slowly, and the courts are too forgiving. By the time they build a case, Terry and Reynaldo will have executed their plan. My daughter will be gone, and I'll be dead. So what do you want to do? I want to give them exactly what they're expecting, an accident. But they're going to be the ones who don't survive it. Damon's plan began to take shape over the next 24 hours. He would use his enemy's own strategy against them, turning their trap into his revenge. But first, he needed to ensure Lily's safety. That evening, Damon called his sister Blanca Schaefer-Knox, who lived in California with her husband and 2 children. Blanca was a successful pediatrician who had always adored Lily and would protect her without question. Blanca, I need you to do something for me without asking questions, Damon said during their phone call. I need you to come to Connecticut and take Lily back to California with you for an extended visit. Damon, what's wrong? You sound different. I can't explain right now, but Lily is in danger. I need her as far away from here as possible. Blanca, hearing the genuine fear in her brother's voice, agreed immediately. She would arrive Friday morning and take Lily back to California that afternoon under the guise of a surprise vacation. With his daughter's safety secured, Damon turned his attention to the final phase of his plan. He would give Terry and Reynaldo their opportunity to kill him, but he would be ready for them. And when the dust settled, they would be the ones who disappeared permanently. On Thursday evening, Damon made his move. He called Reynaldo directly, something he hadn't done in 3 years. Bean, this is Damon Schaefer. I have a proposition for you. The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. What kind of proposition? The kind that could make us both a lot of money. Meet me at the old construction site on Route 7 tomorrow night at midnight. Come alone, and we'll discuss it. After hanging up, Damon called Floyd. It's time to end this. Chapter 5. The Point of No Return. Friday morning arrived with the crisp clarity of autumn in New England. Damon watched from his office window as Blanca's rental car pulled into his driveway, his sister's familiar figure emerging to collect Lily for their surprise vacation. The goodbye was more difficult than Damon had anticipated. Lily, excited about her unexpected trip to California, hugged him tightly at the door. I'll miss you, Daddy, she whispered. I'll miss you too, Princess. Be good for Aunt Blanca, and remember that Daddy loves you more than anything in the world. Terry, who had been unusually quiet all morning, watched the departure with barely concealed anxiety. I wish you had discussed this with me first, she said as Blanca's car disappeared down the street. She's my daughter too, Terry. She'll be back in a few weeks. What Terry didn't know was that Blanca had instructions to keep Lily in California indefinitely, and that Damon had already initiated legal proceedings to establish temporary custody with his sister. By the time Terry realized what had happened, it would be too late. That afternoon, Floyd's surveillance team reported increased activity from both Terry and Reynaldo. They had met 3 times, always in different locations, and their conversations had grown increasingly urgent. They know something's changed, Floyd reported to Damon. Your wife has been making phone calls all day, and Bean's been driving around like he's checking for surveillance. Good. Let them sweat. Fear makes people careless. The final piece of Damon's plan involved Antoine Clay, a demolition expert who had worked on several of Schaefer Industries' projects. Antoine was a man who understood both the legal and illegal applications of explosives, and he owed Damon several favors from past business dealings. "I need you to set up a controlled demolition at the Route 7 site," Damon instructed Antoine. "Make it look like an industrial accident, but give me a safe zone where I can observe and escape if necessary." "Boss, this sounds dangerous. You sure you know what you're doing?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." As evening approached, Damon made his final preparations. He had equipped himself with a bulletproof vest, a concealed recording device, and a secure communication link to Floyd's team. The abandoned construction site on Route 7 was perfect for his purposes: isolated, filled with heavy machinery, and officially closed for safety violations. At 11:30 p.m., Damon arrived at the site and positioned himself in the main trailer, which had been rigged with Antoine's explosives. The demolition would be triggered remotely, giving him time to escape while ensuring that anyone else in the immediate area would not survive. Reynaldo arrived promptly at midnight, his car's headlights cutting through the darkness as he navigated the rough access road. He parked 50 yards from the trailer and approached cautiously, clearly nervous about the meeting. "Schaefer," he called out. "I'm here. Come into the trailer, Bean. We need privacy for this conversation." Reynaldo hesitated, then walked toward the trailer. As he climbed the metal steps, Damon activated his recording device. "I have to admit, I'm surprised you called me," Reynaldo said as he entered the trailer. "Last time we spoke, you threatened to destroy me." "I did destroy you," Damon replied coldly. "But circumstances change. I understand you've been spending time with my wife." Reynaldo's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Cut the bullshit, Bean. I know about the affair. I know about the tracking device you had implanted in my daughter's head. I know about the insurance policy and the forged passport documents. You're fishing. You don't know anything. I know you're planning to kill me, steal my daughter, and disappear with $4 million. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Reynaldo's hand moved slowly toward his jacket pocket, where Floyd's surveillance had confirmed he carried a .38 revolver. "The way I see it," Damon continued, "you have two choices. You can confess everything, provide evidence against my wife, and disappear from my life forever. Or you could try to complete your original plan and see what happens." "What kind of evidence?" "Recordings, documents, testimony. Everything I need to prove that Terry orchestrated this entire scheme." Reynaldo's hand stopped moving toward his weapon. "And if I cooperate, you get to live. You get enough money to start over somewhere far away. And you never see me or my family again. How do I know you won't kill me anyway?" Damon smiled coldly. "Because I'm not you, Bean. I don't murder people for money. I destroy them legally and completely." For a moment, it seemed as though Reynaldo might accept the offer. But then his hand resumed its movement toward his gun, and Damon knew that words were no longer sufficient. The next few seconds would determine whether Damon Schaefer lived or died. Chapter 6: Blood and Betrayal. Reynaldo's hand cleared his jacket pocket, the .38 revolver reflecting the dim light of the trailer's single bulb. But Damon had been expecting this moment, and his own weapon, a .45 automatic, was already in his hand. "Don't be stupid, Bean," Damon said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "You're not a killer. You're a coward who hides behind other people's plans. You destroyed my life." Reynaldo snarled, his gun shaking in his grip. "You took everything from me. I took what you tried to steal from me. There's a difference. After tonight, none of that will matter. Terry and I will have your daughter, your money, and your life." "No," Damon said quietly. "You won't." The standoff stretched for several seconds, both men holding their weapons steady. Then Reynaldo made his mistake. He glanced toward the trailer door, checking his escape route. Damon fired twice, both bullets hitting Reynaldo's center mass. The man dropped to the trailer floor, his revolver clattering across the metal surface. "Floyd, Phase 1 complete." Damon spoke into his communication device. "Initiate Phase 2. Outside the trailer, car headlights suddenly blazed alive. Terry's BMW pulled into the construction site, exactly as Damon had anticipated. She had been waiting nearby, ready to assist in his murder. Damon quickly moved Ronaldo's body to the corner of the trailer, then positioned himself where he could observe Terry's approach. She parked near Ronaldo's car and stepped out, carrying what appeared to be a gasoline can. "Ronaldo," she called out. "Is it finished? Come into the trailer." "Terry," Damon replied, disguising his voice in the darkness. "There's been a complication." Terry approached the trailer cautiously, the gasoline can sloshing in her grip. She climbed the steps and entered the doorway, where she froze at the sight of her husband sitting calmly in a chair, his gun resting on the table before him. "Hello, wife," Damon said, his voice carrying a weight of betrayal and rage. "I've been waiting for you." "Damon, I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain why you had a tracking device implanted in our daughter's head? Can you explain the forged insurance policy? Can you explain why you're carrying gasoline to burn down the evidence of my murder?" Terry's composure cracked completely. "He made me do it. Ronaldo said it was the only way." "Where is he, Terry? Where's your lover?" She looked around the trailer wildly, then spotted Ronaldo's body in the corner. Her scream echoed through the metal structure. "He's dead, Terry, just like you're going to be. You can't kill me. I'm the mother of your child. You stopped being the mother of my child the moment you chose to betray her," Damon said, standing up slowly. "You were going to take her away from me. You were going to steal her life, her identity, her future. We weren't going to hurt her. We just needed her cooperation." "Cooperation? You violated her body, Terry. You had a foreign object surgically implanted in her head without her knowledge or consent. You turned our daughter into a tracked animal." The full horror of what she had done seemed to hit Terry for the first time. I didn't realize." "You didn't realize because you don't love her. You love money. You love excitement. You love the idea of destroying me. But you don't love our daughter." "That's not true." "Prove it," Damon challenged. "Tell me where the forged passport documents are. Tell me who else is involved in this conspiracy. Help me clean up the mess you've made." Terry stared at him for a long moment. Then her expression hardened. "Go to hell, Damon. Even if you kill me, you'll never prove I was involved in any of this." "I don't need to prove anything to anyone except myself," Damon replied. "And I already have all the evidence I need." He activated the recording device he had used with Ronaldo, playing back her confession about the tracking device and the insurance policy. Her own voice filled the trailer, damning her beyond any possibility of denial. "You recorded everything," she whispered. "Everything. Your affair, your plans, your motives. The police will find this recording along with all the other evidence I've gathered." "Then why kill me? Why not just turn me over to the authorities?" Damon's smile was cold as winter steel. "Because the authorities would give you a chance to see my daughter again. They would give you a chance to corrupt her, to poison her mind against me. They would give you a chance to hurt her again. I would never hurt Lily. You already have, Terry. You hurt her in the most fundamental way possible. And I will never forgive you for that." The final confrontation between husband and wife lasted only seconds. When it was over, Damon stood alone in the trailer with two bodies and the weight of absolute justice on his shoulders. He activated the demolition charges Antoine had placed throughout the site. The explosion would destroy the trailer and everything in it, making the deaths appear to be the result of an industrial accident. The insurance companies would investigate, but they would find no evidence of murder, only the tragic end of two people who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. As Damon walked away from the burning construction site, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: complete peace. His enemies were dead, his daughter was safe, and justice had been served. The war was over. Chapter 7: Ashes and Absolution. The explosion lit up the Connecticut countryside like a small sun, visible for miles in every direction. By the time the fire department arrived, the construction site was a smoldering crater, and the trailer that had contained Damon's enemies was nothing more than twisted metal and ash. Damon watched the emergency response from a hill overlooking the site, his secure communication link crackling with updates from Floyd's team. The plan had worked perfectly. The demolition charges had destroyed all evidence of murder while creating a plausible industrial accident. "Boss," The fire marshal's initial assessment is calling it a gas leak explosion, Floyd reported. They're treating it as an accident pending investigation. Good. Make sure our cleanup team handles any loose ends. Already on it. The surveillance equipment has been removed and all our electronic traces have been wiped. Within hours, the story dominated local news. Construction site explosion kills two, the headlines read. Reynaldo Bean and Terry Schaefer, described as business associates reviewing property development, had been tragically killed in what appeared to be an industrial accident. Damon returned home to an empty house that felt more peaceful than it had in months. The silence was broken only by his phone ringing. Detective Cherry, calling with news of the explosion. Mr. Schaefer, I'm sorry to inform you that your wife was killed in an industrial accident tonight, Cherry said, his voice professionally sympathetic. She was at a construction site with a man named Reynaldo Bean when there was an explosion. My God, Damon replied, injecting just the right amount of shock into his voice. Are you certain it was Terry? We'll need you to make a formal identification, but yes, sir. I'm very sorry for your loss. I don't understand. What was she doing at a construction site? That's what we're trying to determine. Mr. Bean was apparently considering purchasing the property for development. Your wife may have been there in a professional capacity. The investigation that followed was thorough, but ultimately fruitless. The insurance companies, suspicious of the convenient timing of Terry's death, hired private investigators to look for evidence of fraud. They found nothing. Damon's planning had been too meticulous, his execution too perfect. More importantly, they discovered the evidence Damon had carefully planted for them. Bank records showing that Terry had been embezzling money from her husband's business accounts, forged documents indicating that she had been planning to flee the country, and communications suggesting that she had been involved in industrial espionage. It appears Mrs. Schaefer was not the woman you thought you married, Detective Cherry told Damon during one of their interviews. We found evidence that she was involved in some very serious criminal activities. I'm shocked, Damon replied. I thought I knew her completely. Unfortunately, Mr. Schaefer, people aren't always what they seem. The good news is that with both conspirators dead, your daughter is safe from any further threats. 3 weeks after the explosion, Damon flew to California to bring Lily home. His daughter, who had been told only that her mother had died in an accident, was struggling with grief and confusion. Daddy, why did Mommy have to die? She asked as they sat in Blanca's garden. Sometimes bad things happen to good people, Princess. But I want you to know that Mommy loved you very much, and she would want you to be happy. It was a lie, but it was a necessary one. Lily would never know the truth about her mother's betrayal, about the tracking device, or about the plan to steal her away from her father. She would grow up believing that Terry had been a loving mother who died tragically, and Damon would make sure that fiction became her reality. Are we going to be okay, Daddy? We're going to be better than okay, Damon promised. We're going to be a family again. Chapter 8. The New Order. 6 months after the explosion, Damon had rebuilt his life according to his own rigid specifications. Lily had adjusted well to her new reality, aided by a carefully selected child psychologist who helped her process her grief without questioning the official version of events. The financial aftermath of Terry's death had been complex but ultimately favorable. The insurance companies, despite their suspicions, had been forced to pay out on her life insurance policy. Not the forged $4 million policy, which was discovered and voided, but her legitimate $500,000 policy that predated the conspiracy. Additionally, Damon had been able to recover the money she had stolen and hidden in various accounts. More satisfying still, the investigation into Terry's criminal activities had revealed a network of corruption that extended far beyond her affair with Reynaldo. The document forger, Christopher Ponce, had been arrested and was now serving a 10-year federal sentence. Several other accomplices had been identified and prosecuted, effectively dismantling the entire criminal enterprise. Boss, we've got a problem, Floyd announced during one of their regular security meetings. Reynaldo Bean had a brother, Delbert Bean. He's been asking questions about the explosion. Damon looked up from the construction contracts he had been reviewing. What kind of questions? He's been talking to reporters, private investigators, anyone who will listen. He's convinced that his brother was murdered. And what evidence does he have? None that we can identify. But he's persistent, and he's got enough money to cause trouble. Damon considered this development carefully. Delbert Bean had been a successful accountant who had managed to avoid being dragged down by his brother's failures. He was intelligent, methodical, and potentially dangerous if he continued his investigation. Set up a meeting with him, Damon decided. Let's see what he really wants. The meeting took place at a neutral location, a coffee shop in downtown Hartford. Delbert Bean was a thin, nervous man in his 50s who looked nothing like his deceased brother. Where Reynaldo had been stocky and aggressive, Delbert was precise and calculating, perhaps more dangerous in his own way. "Mr. Schaefer, thank you for agreeing to meet with me," Delbert said, his voice carefully modulated. "I know this must be difficult, given that my brother died alongside your wife." "I'm still processing the tragedy myself," Damon replied. "What can I do for you?" "I've been investigating the circumstances of Reynaldo's death, and I've found some inconsistencies." Damon kept his expression neutral. "What kind of inconsistencies?" "Financial records show that Reynaldo had been receiving regular payments from an offshore account. The payment stopped exactly 1 week before his death." "And you think this is significant?" "I think someone was paying my brother to do something, and when that something was completed, they eliminated him to cover their tracks." Damon studied Delbert's face, looking for tells and weaknesses. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have any evidence to support it?" "I have bank records, communication logs, and witness statements. I also have reason to believe that your wife was not the innocent victim she appeared to be." "Mr. Bean, I'm going to stop you right there," Damon said, his voice hardening. "My wife died in a tragic accident. Whatever theories you've developed about conspiracy or murder, you need to keep them to yourself. Or what? Or you'll discover that some investigations are more dangerous than others." Delbert leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving Damon's face. "That sounds like a threat, Mr. Schaefer. It's a warning. Your brother made the mistake of thinking he could destroy me once before. I wouldn't want you to repeat his errors." "So you admit there was bad blood between you and Reynaldo?" "I admit that your brother was a failed business partner who tried to steal from me. Beyond that, I have nothing more to say." Delbert stood up slowly, leaving a folder on the table. "Mr. Schaefer, I've compiled everything I've discovered about my brother's death. I'm going to continue investigating, and if I find evidence of foul play, I'll take it to the authorities." "That's your choice, Mr. Bean. But I'd suggest you be very careful about making accusations you can't prove." After Delbert left, Damon opened the folder and reviewed its contents. The man had been thorough, too thorough. He had identified several of the financial transactions that could potentially be traced back to Damon's operation, and he had even obtained witness statements from people who had seen Terry and Reynaldo together. "Floyd, we have a problem," Damon said during his next call. "Delbert Bean is more dangerous than his brother ever was." "What do you need me to do?" "I need you to make him understand that some investigations should be abandoned." Chapter 9. The Final Reckoning. 2 weeks after his meeting with Delbert Bean, Damon received a phone call that changed everything. It was Detective Cherry, and his voice carried a weight that immediately put Damon on alert. "Mr. Schaefer, I need you to come to the station. We have some new developments in your wife's case." "What kind of developments?" "I'd rather discuss this in person." An hour later, Damon sat across from Detective Cherry in the same interview room where they had first discussed the tracking device found in Lily's head. This time, however, the atmosphere was distinctly different. "Mr. Schaefer, we've received some new information about the explosion that killed your wife," Cherry began. "Information that suggests the incident may not have been accidental." "What kind of information?" "Delbert Bean has provided us with evidence that his brother was being blackmailed by someone with access to industrial explosives. He believes that person used Reynaldo to lure your wife to the construction site, then eliminated both of them." Damon kept his expression carefully neutral. "That's a very elaborate theory." "It's more than a theory. Mr. Bean has bank records showing regular payments from an offshore account, communications suggesting coercion, and witness statements placing both victims at the scene under suspicious circumstances." "Detective, I've already told you everything I know about my wife's activities. If she was involved in something illegal, I wasn't aware of it. Mr. Schaefer, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you have any involvement in the deaths of your wife and Reynaldo Bean? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Damon had been preparing for this moment since the night of the explosion, but actually facing it was different than he had anticipated. Detective, I love my wife despite our problems. I would never have hurt her. That's not what I asked you. Then let me be clear. I had no involvement in the explosion that killed my wife and Reynaldo Bean. It was technically true. Damon had not been involved in the explosion itself. He had been involved in the murders that preceded it, but the actual demolition had been carried out by remote detonation after he had left the scene. Mr. Schaefer, I need to inform you that you're a person of interest in this investigation. You have the right to legal representation. Am I under arrest? Not at this time, but I would strongly advise you to retain counsel. That evening, Damon sat in his study, staring at the phone number for the best criminal defense attorney in the state. Ronald Gaines had built his reputation defending wealthy clients accused of white-collar crimes, and he had never lost a murder case. But before making that call, Damon had another conversation to arrange. Floyd, I need you to set up a meeting with Delbert Bean. Tonight. Somewhere private. Boss, that's not a good idea. The police are watching him now. Then we'll have to be creative about it. The meeting took place in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Hartford, chosen specifically because it was scheduled for demolition the following week. Delbert arrived alone, as instructed, but his nervous energy suggested he was prepared for trouble. Mr. Bean, thank you for coming, Damon said, emerging from the shadows. I think it's time we had an honest conversation. I'm wearing a wire, Delbert said immediately. If anything happens to me, the police will have everything they need. I'm sure you are, but I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to offer you a deal. What kind of deal? The kind that lets you walk away from this investigation alive and wealthy. Damon pulled out a briefcase and opened it, revealing neat stacks of $100 bills. $500,000, Mr. Bean. More than enough to start a new life somewhere far away from Connecticut. You're trying to buy my silence. I'm trying to save your life. Your brother thought he could destroy me, and you see how that worked out for him. So you admit you killed him? I admit that people who threaten my family tend to have accidents. Your brother was planning to kidnap my daughter and kill me for insurance money. What would you have done in my position? Delbert stared at the money for several seconds. And if I take this and disappear, then you live happily ever after. You use the money to start over, and you never mention my name or my family again. And if I don't, then you'll discover that some investigations are more dangerous than others. For a long moment, the two men stared at each other across the briefcase full of money. Finally, Delbert reached out and closed the case. I'll need guarantees, he said. Written assurances that my safety will be protected. You'll have them. But understand this, Mr. Bean. If you ever try to renege on our agreement, if you ever come after me or my daughter again, there won't be enough money in the world to protect you. Understand? Good. Then we have a deal. 3 days later, Delbert Bean withdrew his cooperation from the police investigation and disappeared. Detective Cherry, lacking sufficient evidence to proceed without his key witness, was forced to close the case as an unsolved industrial accident. 6 months later, Damon Schaefer stood in his daughter's bedroom, watching her sleep peacefully. Lily had grown taller, her blonde hair now reaching her shoulders, and she had developed the same steel-gray eyes that had served her father so well in business. She was safe, she was protected, and she would never know the truth about the monsters who had tried to steal her away. Damon had built his empire through ruthless efficiency and uncompromising principles. He had applied those same qualities to protecting his daughter, and the results spoke for themselves. His enemies were dead, his family was secure, and justice had been served according to his own unforgiving code. As he turned off the bedroom light and closed the door, Damon Schaefer felt the satisfaction of a man who had won the most important war of his life. He had lost a wife, but she had never truly been his. He had gained something far more valuable, the absolute certainty that his daughter would grow up safe, loved, and free from the corruption that had nearly destroyed their family. The war was over,